Hello and welcome everybody. Today we have Mike Archer back for his wonderful sales certification course for you. How you doing today, Mike?
I am fine. You can see I got a sweatshirt on. It's finally starting to get fall up here in Seattle, so that's good. So today, wonderful people, we are on lesson 2 in your manuals. You should be on page 4. But before we go any further, Amanda, for those that are joining us new, you want to show them where they can find all this stuff.
Yes, of course. Okay, so I'm just gonna share my screen now so you guys can see it. So I logged into my back office and then I go ahead and I click on Travel Cafe. And this is going to open the Travel Cafe website, as you can see. And this is Mike right here, lovely face being promoted. But we want to go to the Trainings Hub. So you click on Trainings Hub. And we want you to get started right away. So quick start and then click on the sales certification program. And then right here, you can download this PDF. You must be logged into your back office to download this PDF though. And there it is. So go ahead and download it right now if you have it. And yeah, there you go, Mike. Take it back.
All right, sweet. Okay, so I remember telling you guys, and I'm going to hammer on you the entire time that we're doing this, is that selling is a relationship business, and this sales training course will not work if you are only trying to sell digitally. So that's the whole key here, is if you want to really grow your business, you're going to have to get out there, knock on some doors, talk to people, and whole bunch of repeat customers that trust you, love you, and want to do business with you. So in order to do that, you've got to get on the same page with them. And so what we're doing now is on page 4, we are going to establish a relationship. And this is how we're going to start. Because remember, the very first step in the process is establishing the relationship before you can go into ask the questions. This is how we're going to do it. All right. So I want you to, in the first paragraph, the most common mistake we make when we're talking with people is we think their only decision is whether or not they're going to buy from us. And that's not true. The very first decision people make is not that they're going to buy something from you. It's, am I going to continue to listen to this person? That's the key. Selling is not talking to somebody and getting one big yes that they're going to buy from you. It's getting a series of incrementally small yeses to get to the big yes at the end. So that's how you're going to establish a relationship. So we're going to talk about the similarities and the differences. We're going to talk about managing relationship and communication skills, which is lessons 2, 3, and 4, which follow this one. All right. So lesson 2 in the behavioral styles. Each of us is built, we are all wired differently. And how do we figure out how each one of us is wired? So those are called our behavioral styles, okay? It's our minds, our intellects, our abilities, and our wills form our nature, how we were born, all right? Our surroundings, this is the nature and nurture on how we build our personalities. So our surroundings form our morals, values, ideas, ideals, and our attitudes. This is our nurture. We're going to take the 2 of them together and we're going to figure out there's 4 basic styles. All right. And the styles you can see down at the bottom, there's 4 types: analyticals, drivers, expressives, and amiables. And we're going to get into each one of those today. Now, but before we do that, we have to set up some guidelines. And so how we do that is you look at on the right-hand column, look at number 1, and you need to pay attention to this because this is on the test. Style is based upon behaviors we can observe. Okay, they're objective. And by using verbal and nonverbal clues, it is what people say and what people do. So what we're observing is what they say and what they do. And what helps us in that is the clues that they give us, both verbally and non-verbally. So that's the key thing. Number two, styles is non-judgmental. This isn't about putting people in boxes. This is simply about recognizing how people like to be treated based on what they are. It's not limiting. You're not putting them in boxes. And your style is perfect for you, and it's not subject to change. And remember, I told you, nature and nurture is how we have been wired our entire lives. So all we're going to do is when we're observing other people, we are observing what they're doing so that we can make some decisions on how we want to treat them. And all of us have behaviors. Even though we have a home-based style, which we're going to talk about, we all have behaviors that are common to all of the other styles. It's just, but there's one place where we are the most comfortable. Now, one of the things that this is important for, this is a life skill. This isn't just a business skill. This is something you can use with your kids, your spouses, your bosses, your friends. If you ever get into some arguments, we're going to show you methods on how you can resolve those and get things back to an even keel. All right. So what I want you to do is I want you to look at page 5. What we're going to do is we're going to fill out this behavior profile, which is on the next page. But before you do that, what I want you to do is glance over the behavioral profile on the top left of page 5. That's me. That's my base style. I took this test about 30 years ago, and actually not much has changed. So here's what we're going to do. So you can see what I want you to do is turn to page 6, and I'm going to read the top. So imagine you're in a kitchen at a party and you're listening to 5 of your clients, business acquaintances, family members, and they're all talking about you. And they don't know you're listening. And so the words and phrases below are what they're using to describe you. So what I want you to do is pick the words or phrases you think that they would describe you most of the time, more than 50% of the time. And we're going to compare columns 1 and 2, and then we're going to compare columns 3 and 4. So here's how you're going to do that. I want you to turn back to page 4 or 5, and I want you to see how the check marks that I have done. So columns 1 and columns 2 work together. And this is how this is your what we call your emotional quotient. So you'll notice it's each one of these is an either or situation. You only check one or the other on that same line. So you sorry, let me go back. All right, so columns 1 and 2, this is me. All right, and I've come up with a -2. If you have a minus number, don't worry about it. All right, because it's a chart. So there's a plus numbers and minus numbers on both lines of the chart. So don't worry about what your number is. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to do this, and hopefully some of you have already done it, but we are going to give you a minute or two to do it right now. And so I want you to take this, and I want you to do this and check one or the other on each one of these lines, and then add your check marks from column 1 and column 2, and then you subtract column 2 from column 1 to get a number. So you can see I'm a 7 and a 9, so I'm at a -2. All right, I want you to do that right now. And then when you're all finished with it, do a thumbs up or a smiley face or whatever in the chat. So Amanda knows you're finished. And when the bulk of you are completed, we'll go ahead and move on to the next section. So go ahead and do that.
Okay, good.
We're good?
Mike,
Yeah.
they're done.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right, so now we're going to do the same thing. This has to do, columns 3 and 4 has to do with our levels of assertiveness or aggressiveness, if you will. And we're going to do the exact same thing here that we did on the other one. So go ahead and fill this out, take a minute or two, and then check your numbers and get a total, and give you another minute or two.
It seems like we lost you, Mike.
Yeah, but it was all during, yes, you did, but it was all during the quiet time.
Okay. All right, can you please reshare your screen?
Oh, yes, I can.
Okay.
Sorry
Ready for
about
the
that,
next
guys.
part.
Sorry about that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is this is what it looks like in total. All right. So now you're going to do the directions on the bottom. So now you're going to go over to page 7 and you're going to find your column 1 and column 2 number on your vertical scale. So in my case, I was a -2. So I come down here to -2 and I draw a line. Whoops, sorry. I draw a line. Here's my -2. So I draw a line through it. Okay. Then I'm going to do the same thing with my other number, which is my horizontal scale. And I was a -1. So on the horizontal scale, I go to -1 and I draw a line through it. So -2, -1, that's me right there. So I am an amiable. Now, because I am so close to the center, I have a lot of characteristics of the driver, and we're going to go through each one of those. So you're going to have a lot of secondary characteristics. Now, for any of you who are out to the outside, like anything beyond the fives, you're not going to have very many characteristics from any of the other. You'll have some, but you're going to be pretty much the classic, what we would call a classic amiable or a classic analytical. And those people are generally fairly easy to read. Sometimes I'm not a particularly easy guy to read because, yes, I'm an amiable, but I also have a lot of driving characteristics depending on my situation. Now, one thing I want to caution you about is that you are not static right here. You are never going to stay in exactly that spot. Depending on the situation, you could migrate on your assertiveness. You could become, when you're, and especially when you're under stress, and we're going to talk about that next time. But for example, because I am in a training mode and I've got a lot of material to cover, my controlling nature takes over and I become more assertive. So right now, I'm probably somewhere over in here in the driving category because of the situation. In a social situation, especially if I'm around people that I've never met before, I migrate way over to the less assertive side. Because I am, I prefer people to come to me. I am not a guy that goes around the party making sure that everybody knows who I am. I wait for people to come to me. You're going to be that same way depending on the situation. So now that we have that, what I want you to do is you've marked your home base style. And now we're going to reaffirm what that home base style is. All right, so amiables. And you can find, by the way, you can find all of this over on page 10. So on page 10, amiables are the people pleasers. They're well balanced as a rule. They're sympathetic. They're diplomatic as a rule. They love to work in groups. These are the people. They don't like conflict. And we're going to talk about how they deal with conflict with everybody. But this is a big one. This is a big one for amiables. They don't like to get in fights. And they're very slow decision makers. So those of you, so you're going to hear me talk all the time about people who are right of the line, left of the line, and people who are above the line, below the line. Well, all that means is if you're a right of the line person, that means you're right of center, which means you're either a driver or an expressive. And if you're left of the line, that means you're either an analytical or an amiable. Above the line people are the analyticals and drivers, and below the line people are the amiables and expressives. It's easy, well, as we get into this, it's going to be very, very easy for you to get somebody into one of those halves. You'll either see they're very aggressive or they're very not aggressive, or you'll see that they're very emotional or very unemotional. It's going to be easy to get them into a half. Getting them into the proper style for them is just going to take some more observation on your part. Okay, so analyticals, these are the serious people. They're very purposeful. They're very self-disciplined. They're perfectionists. Their desire has to be, their overriding desire is to be correct. They're neat and tidy. And they like facts and data. These are the lawyers, the accountants, the scientists, people who deal in facts and data. These are analyticals, are not the people. And again, because they are left of the line, they're not very assertive. They are slow decision makers. The drivers, these are the dynamic, these are the CEO types. These are the dynamic, hard driving, go get them type of people. They're visionaries. They're very determined. They are going to make stuff happen no matter what. when you're talking with a driver in a selling situation, they love to have options. They're not afraid to take risk. Amiables and analyticals are not risk takers, but drivers are. They like risk, but their risk is usually based on facts and data. They love, these are the control, these are the my way or the highway guys. So especially when they're under stress. And they're fast decision makers. All right. Expressives, outgoing. These are the guys these are the life of the party people. Always, they're very ambitious. They want to get there, and they want to get there in a hurry. They're very charismatic. They're very persuasive. They're not so time disciplined. You got to be really careful with an expressive, because if the party starts at 9 o'clock, they might show up at 9:30. So they don't have a lot of time discipline, where drivers, on the other hand, have a lot of time discipline. They love recognition. All right. And the last one is they are fast decision makers, because they're on the right side. So I am an amiable. My sister is an amiable. Those of you that have met and know Ron, you pretty much identified him as very much a right of the line guy, but also he is an expressive. He's a visionary, but when you talk with Ron, Ron doesn't like to get bogged down in the details. My brother Steve, on the other hand, is the classic example of an analytical. That's all he deals with, is facts and figures and numbers. He loves that stuff. But where Ron makes fast decisions, Steve makes slow decisions. I'm somewhere in the middle, depending on what the decision has to be. But that gives you an idea of how people interact with each other, even within the same families. All right, so I want you to turn back now. I want you to turn back to, or pay attention to this chart that you just marked. I want to talk about style toxicity. And toxicity, this is not in your manual, but it's on the test, so you need to pay attention to it. Because I am a driver, I'm what's called a driving amiable. I have characteristics of drivers, but because I'm an amiable, sometimes people that I'm talking to that are drivers are toxic to me, because we don't share a lot of the same characteristics. So toxic styles, if you're in here and you're in these inner quadrants, this doesn't become quite so much of a problem. However, if you are somewhere toward the outside or over in, out in the corners, the farther away you get from the center, the more likely you are to have issues in your selling. So if you're an amiable down in this area someplace, you are probably going to have issues with drivers. And if you're a driver out here, you're going to have a lot of issues with amiables. It's just the nature of the beast. And the same with analyticals and expressives. So just pay attention to what may work for you internally may not work for you externally when you're talking to a client. And I just wanted to bring that up on style toxicities, because it's going to happen, especially when your situation starts to get stressful. Okay, again, it's on the test, but it's not in the manual. All right, so now I want you to turn over to page 11. Remember, I told you that behavioral styles is about observing people verbally and non-verbally, and this is how they show their behavior styles to you. So here's the characteristics. And you should probably print this out and keep it with you as a handy reference tool. So there's a couple that I want to really point out to you that will give you some immediate clues. All right. In the nonverbal, go to the handshake. Handshakes, I want you to underline these. Handshakes, facial expression, eye contact, gesturing, and posture. Okay, these are some clues that you can see immediately upon meeting somebody that will give you some clues as to how they like to be treated. All right, the verbal in the characteristics, there's not that many of them. You know, there's the voice and their diction. So for example, because I'm an amiable, you will notice my diction is a little bit more on the formal side. Analyticals, their English and grammar is very formal, as is the drivers, and the expressives are a little bit less formal. But one of the first things that you notice when you meet people, what's the first thing you do? You look them in the eye and you shake their hands. All right, so pay attention to that. Amiables, they have their handshakes are firm. A lot of times they're under. And what I mean by that is when you shake hands, a business handshake is where you're sticking your hand straight out with your thumb in and you go in web to web. Okay. So when you shake hands, it's web to web. That's the classic business handshake. And it's neutral. Okay. It's neutral. Your fingers aren't here, they're not here. But an amiable is because they're not very aggressive, their handshakes, if they go under, this is called under. Okay. Analyticals, handshakes typically are not, they're not as firm and they're close to their bodies because remember, they're cautious people. Handshakes for the driver is strong. It's a strong handshake and it's typically over the top. And expressives are firm and extended. And I'll tell you a story that really brought this home to me when I was doing my yearbooks. I'd met a principal for the first time, and he came around his desk, and his hand was like this to shake mine. And just to see what would happen, I went in, I grabbed his hand, and I immediately turned it to neutral. It didn't take him half a second to get my hand back to here. So that told me right off the bat, I'm dealing with a right of the line guy. I've just got to figure out if he's an expressive or a driver. But handshakes are really, really important. Facial expression, look for the animation. Remember, I told you as a good salesperson, one of the things that you always want to present to your clients is a smile on your face and a smile in your voice. All right. So, but those of you that are analyticals that don't have a lot of facial expression, that could possibly pose an issue for you, but not to worry. Don't worry. It's not something you want to worry about. It's just something to be aware of. Okay. Eye contact. Is their eye contact good? Is it strong? Some point, some people have eye contact so strong that it actually kind of bores into you. And that makes people who are less assertive, that makes them really uncomfortable. So you've got to pay attention. How close you are to somebody. People have their personal space. Generally, it's an arm's length is their personal space. If you get into that personal space, sometimes that causes a problem. Okay. They're gesturing. This one's fun. Gesturing for right of the line people are typically outside of their shoulders. Left of the line people, typically their body movements and their gesturing is typically inside of their shoulders. That's just a general rule, just something to pay attention to, but it's something you want to take a look at. And then posturing. Amiables typically are relaxed, they're upright. Analyticals, they're stiff and they kind of lean back because remember they like a lot of space. They don't get close to an analytical. They don't like it. Drivers are straight and they're leaning in. Remember, they're more on the assertive side, so they're gonna be straight and leaning in. And expressives are going to be more relaxed, but they're still going to lean in because they're more assertive. So print these out, take a look at them, study them, and this is going to help you as you identify people in their styles. Okay, that's it for today. I want to give you one more. If you look at the bottom of page 10, this personality test that I'm giving you this is one of the original tests that was started. I think this was like 1972 or 73. But if you want to get more information on this particular one, you can go to, there's two websites that I posted that are on on page 10. So if this really has an interest for you, you want to get deeper into it, go to those websites. Other than that, Amanda, do we have any questions in the chat room?
We have no questions today.
Gosh, I'm that good.
You're that good, Mike.
Okay, guys. So next week, if you want to get a head start, I want to give you some homework. I want you to print the blank ones out. If you go there, so there's a whole bunch of blank ones in there in the manual. I want you to print out 5 or 10 of them, and I want you to do some. Do some on your kids, on your spouses, on some your good friends. Do it, and it's a lot of fun. You'll have fun doing it. So anyway, I want you to do those just so you can get a handle on. Also, if you've got a client that you're dealing with, especially if you're dealing with one of your tougher clients, make sure you do one of these on that person. So if you have any questions on any of this stuff, there's my information on the screen. Give me a call, send me an email, and I'm happy to go over with this. Also, if any of you are struggling with this and you're not quite sure what your own particular style is, take a picture or scan that sheet in and send it to me with what your question is, and I'll look at it, and we can either have a conversation or an email back and forth if you're struggling with this. Other than that, I'll see you guys all next week when we're on lesson 3. Thanks. See you later.